And I know it's going to be hard. All we've got to do is just keep pushing.
It's not stopping!
And the wolf pack will never be the same.
Fans are curious. What happened to Bam Bam Brown? The Alaskan Bush People has been a great reality show for decades. However, the most quiet cast member has been Bam Bam Brown. What's worse, Bam Bam has been going through heartbreaking tragedy. Keep watching as we reveal everything to you in detail. Life after the various tragedies. From the moment Joshua made that decision to leave Alaskan Bush People from 2016 to 2017, he had begun drafting a new course for his life. Though it was still centered around his natural interests, he remained with his partner, Allison Kagan, even though there have never been reports of their marriage. As of 2024, they both live on their 100-foot ferry, which they nicknamed Fathom This. It is anchored somewhere along the U.S. coast and is evidence of their shared passion for engineering and sustainable living. They are, however, settled in the hilltops of northern Washington, not far from home. However, the family's 435 acres on the North Star Ranch remains their base. Even though some siblings of the Brown family, which comprises Matthew Jeremiah, Solomon Isaiah Bear, Gabriel Gabe, Noah Dark Cloud, Amora Jean Birdie, and Merry Christmas Rain, occasionally mentions their returning to Alaska, Bam Bam in mid-2024, confirmed that all members of the family were still anchored on the ranch. The matriarch, Ami Brown, is still alive despite the earlier cancer scare, and today she serves as the decision-maker regarding property and the family's legacy, serving as the uniting force of the family. Speculation has it that her continued presence is the reason for Bam Bam's continued proximity to the ranch. Bam Bam has also switched careers and is now a techpreneur, especially as the Alaskan Bush People stopped airing new episodes on the 4th of December 2022. According to Factual America, he founded a startup which was focused on eco-friendly tech solutions, with an emphasis on improving off-grid living systems. Some of his specific projects remain undisclosed, but his background as a wilderness survivor with nomadic skills suggests that he might delve into renewable energy, water filtration, or smart housing models. This startup has sparked both educational and documentary collaborations. Additionally, industry analysts have predicted that he may be sought out to create a show focusing on his innovative fusion of survival technology. He is still referred to by many as the quiet, introspective creator who is gradually transitioning from reality TV to being a social impact innovator. His social media presence is also quite minimal, and as of 2024, his net worth is believed to be around $350,000. Which is primarily from his reality show earnings, cameo appearances, and the early-stage eco-friendly tech enterprise. Bam Bam's fatal car crash. On the afternoon of the 20th of May, 2022, Joshua Bam Bam Brown was involved in a fatal car crash. The accident happened on State Route 97, just north of Riverside in Okanogan County, Washington. This was at approximately 2:30 post-meridian time, as a result of a head-on collision with a black Chevrolet Camaro. According to the Washington State Patrol, it happened when the black Chevrolet traveling south suddenly crossed over the center line and collided with Bam Bam's northbound 2015 GMC Sierra. The driver of the Camaro was a 38-year-old woman named Gabriela Garcia Harrison, who hailed from Washington, D.C. She also had a 24-year-old Lorena Martinez Gonzalez as her passenger. Unfortunately, Gonzalez was reported to have died at the scene of the accident. The witnesses of the accident, as well as its investigators, reiterate that Harrison's vehicle lost control, likely due to the rainy and slick road conditions that had been reported earlier that day. Her car had entered Bam Bam's lane and struck the driver's side corner of his truck. In response to this move, Bam Bam attempted to swerve to the right to avoid the oncoming vehicle, but there was no time or space to prevent the collision. The impact of the hit sent both vehicles partially off the road, and Bam Bam's truck landed in a ditch. Shortly after the accident had occurred, emergency responders arrived at the scene, after which they declared the passenger of the Camaro dead. Also, the driver, Harrison, was initially treated at Mid-Valley Hospital before she was airlifted to Central Washington Hospital in Wenatchee to receive further treatment. The extent of the injury she sustained during the accident was not fully disclosed to the media. Joshua Brown, also known as Bam Bam, was also transported to the Mid-Valley Hospital, and his injuries were described as minor. Even though he sustained spinal discomfort and bruising, he was treated and released shortly after the accident. Authorities confirmed that Bam Bam was applying all safety protocols at the time of the accident as he was putting on his seatbelt. It was also claimed that he was not impaired, nor was he at fault for the accident in any way. A public statement given by Washington State Patrol Trooper Jeremy Weber emphasized that Bam Bam had been driving within the speed limit, had made an evasive attempt to avoid the crash, and bore no responsibility for the incident. Investigators also stated that the direct cause of the collision was the Camaro's crossing of the center line. It was also unknown if the accident was substance or alcohol induced by the other driver, Harrison, as toxicology reports were pending. No charges were filed against Bam Bam, nor were there any indications that he would face civil or criminal liability. Yet despite being vindicated by the law and having clarity on his role in preventing the accident, Joshua was never quite the same after the incident. If anything, his already established love for privacy and maintaining a low public profile heightened. He did not issue a statement, grant interviews, or publicly comment on the crash or the level of its fatality. While some of his siblings have continued to engage with fans on social media, he has remained particularly silent, and in the weeks following the accident, there were no social media updates from him. Even the show, Alaskan Bush People, remained uncharacteristically silent on the matter of the accident, both at the time and in its subsequent seasons. The extent of damage done to the GMC Sierra and the Camaro was photographed and circulated online in local news at the time, showing how serious the accident truly was. Even pictures released by the Washington State Patrol District 6 office showed the chaos of the accident scene. This involved twisted metal, emergency personnel, and evidence markers laid out on the wet highway. These pictures further reinforce the narrative that the accident had been very close to being more deadly than it actually was. The accident received wide coverage and was reported by KPQAM 560 News Radio, Starcasm, PopCulture.com, and a host of it, which were both regional and nationally based. All of these reports maintained a narrative. Bam Bam had not been the cause of the accident. He had been hospitalized briefly and had since been released. He was reported to have cooperated fully with law enforcement officers during the investigation, and all of these translated to mean that Bam Bam had not sustained any long-term injuries. However, what was not examined was the extent to which losing a fellow motorist had on his psychological and emotional well-being, even though he was not at fault, just as Bam Bam had always done. After he had taken enough time off to heal, he resumed his usual daily activities and has since remained out of the spotlight, especially for negativity. The details of the unfortunate incident, however, remain in police reports and media articles. Yet, from his end, there is no public statement signaling that the accident had occurred or why it had occurred. Disaster in the North Star Ranch. The month of August 2020 saw a new tragedy witnessed by the Brown family. Their homestead, North Star Ranch, burned down when a massive wildfire, which started from the Palmer Mountain. The flames burnt both their compound and several outbuildings. Bear Brown later took to his Instagram to report that a fire swept through our mountain, our home. The loss seems to be great. Afterwards, the Discovery Channel confirmed that the family evacuated safely, praised the firefighters, and called on the fans to donate relief materials. For Bam Bam, this fire was not just a property loss, but a profound personal tragedy, as the North Star Ranch had been a manifestation of both his and Allison's dedication to sustainable living and self-reliance. All the structures, which consisted of barns, cabins, and the personal workspace he had built, were all razed to the ground, leading to a loss of years of hard work that he had lovingly created alongside his partner. In the subsequent weeks, the Brown family meticulously worked to rebuild their lives and overcome the losses created by the fire. The reconstruction was as physical as it was emotional. In Bam Bam's typical version, he processed the grief by silently planning the rebuild, utilizing his engineering instincts to salvage systems and assess the damage. However, this time around, he did not isolate himself from the rest of the family. While the cameras portrayed his siblings as they tried to protect the livestock and thank the firefighters, he was planning strategically. Footage from Discovery Channel's memorial episode for Billy and the behind-the-scenes updates posted by Bear Brown and Rain Brown showed that Bam Bam was involved deeply in the ranch repairs and long-term care of Ami. For Bam Bam, it wasn't just the house that had burned down. It was the raising of the values he held dear to his heart. His independence, resilience, and creative future, all gone. Even though a part of the life he had built with Allison was razed in the fire, he was filled with renewed determination and introspection to do even better than before. Enduring his parents' tragedies. The bond every child shares with their parents is very special. Hence the reason most parents' actions usually affect the child, either positively or negatively. Now, imagine that your parents are forcefully taken away from you by the cold hands of death without giving you enough time to prepare. Ami Brown began dealing with her lung cancer after she was diagnosed with advanced lung cancer in April 17. She would later describe these moments of her life as being so dark. At the time, she was given only a 3% chance of surviving the disease. Her weight would drop drastically to 77 pounds, and she required oxygen and round-the-clock care. In response to this, Billy made the decision to abandon their Alaskan wilderness lifestyle and move the entire family to Southern California, a move that was in direct contradiction to the basis of the Alaskan Bush People. This was so that Ami could receive intensive treatment at the University of California, Los Angeles Medical Center. Amy would then undergo aggressive radiation and chemotherapy at the Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center, which was one of the country's premier cancer institutes. The treatment she underwent during this period was very painful. It was so painful that even drinking water was very painful. Her cancer symptoms would initially worsen before eventually showing signs of stability. By late 2017, scans would show that the tumors in her lungs had shrunken significantly, and from then onwards, she would begin responding to treatment positively from here on. By late 2018, her doctors declared that she was in remission. In an interview that was aired on the Discovery Channel in 2017, he would later say, "We've been here for a long time, we never stopped praying, and now we're doing what we can to keep her alive." He, without thinking twice, was willing to sacrifice the identity of the family brand, as long as it ensured the full recovery of his wife. "I was told it was over, that there was no hope, and somehow I'm still here." These were Amy's words to People's Magazine after she had fully recovered. It is during this period of remission that her family would purchase a 435-acre parcel of the Tunisket, Washington property in the northern Cascade foothills. At the time, Billy Brown, who was always perceived as tough and invincible, was described by Bear and Rain as broken and in pain. Even though on screen, he would often deliver hopeful speeches to comfort the children. In a Discovery special, Rain was noted to say, "He tried to hold it all together for us, but you could see it was tearing him up inside. We all saw how scared he was." He also had a health scare in October 2018. Representatives for Discovery, the Alaskan Bush People's home channel, told Country Living that Billy had an upper respiratory infection, which had landed him in the hospital. Bear Brown also confirmed this through an Instagram post, which he deleted after a while. In the post, he reiterated that his dad was in really bad shape. This was not the first time something of that nature had happened, as some of his health episodes had been captured on tape at times. A previous seizure, which had occurred in 2015, had left him hospitalized, a phenomenon Bam Bam Brown had said happened now and then. This condition was said to be exacerbated by his choice to continue living in the Alaskan mountains. He was also said to have suffered from heart and kidney diseases. Sadly, by 2020, he had become visibly weaker and was no longer as active as he was in previous years. He required supplemental oxygen support and was often seen with nasal tubes and often limited his movement, clear indicators of his deteriorating health. Then, on the 7th of February, 2021, Billy Brown unexpectedly took his last breath on planet Earth. The onus to announce his death was then placed on Bear Brown, who wrote on his private Instagram account, "We are heartbroken to announce that our beloved patriarch Billy Brown passed away last night after suffering from a seizure." He would go on to describe Billy as their best friend, loving father, and husband, who would be dearly missed. At the time of his departure, Billy Brown was 68 years old. The Discovery Channel would also issue a tribute, describing Billy as one of a kind, whose heart guided the family's path. The death of Billy came as an unexpected shock to his family members, but especially to Amy. While Amy had undergone chemotherapy, she had survived, although Bam Bam's grief for his father wasn't particularly loud and featured in emotional social media tributes. Like some of his siblings, his presence was noted in group efforts shown in post-Billy episodes. On the 28th of February of that same month, a tribute was held to his honor. He had died without leaving behind a will, with property worth approximately $415,000 and some liabilities. All of these then fell under Ami as the executor of his estate. Thus, they had to combine their grief with ensuring that the estate did not fail. People have different ways of processing their grief, and Bam Bam was no different. He withdrew from social media platforms, a move that was noticeable because of the level of his activities there before Billy's death. He would also avoid interviews and fully immerse himself in practical work and nature. Screen Rant records that Bam Bam maintained his characteristic composure on the one-year remembrance of his father's death, keeping the public mourning minimal. This goes on to prove how deeply private Bam Bam was, after acquiring a sense of reserve from the years of survival with his father, who is noted to have once said, "When it is hard, that is when you must keep going." His love life and its effects on Alaskan Bush People. In late 2016, when the show was at the beginning of its 6th season, Bam Bam would gradually begin to withdraw from the show. By February 2017, he had fully but temporarily withdrawn, and he announced his departure. This was due to a growing romantic relationship that festered between him and Allison Kagan. He had first spoken about her on the show, although during this initial confession he did not share any details about who the woman was. He had simply said it had felt like the right time to follow his heart, as he had fallen deeply in love with a woman he referred to as a city girl. She had stirred something inside him and had made his soul wake up. Allison wasn't an ordinary girl. She was one of the supervising directors or producers of the Alaskan Bush Show, who had directed a little over a dozen episodes of the series between 2015 and 2021. In fact, she had produced other reality TV shows in the past, such as Teen Mom 2 and 90 Day Fiancé. However, one would have expected that members of the family would generally agree upon his choice of a woman, but this was not to be, as no amount of his high praise for Allison could convince his family otherwise. Rumors have it that the relationship between Bam Bam and Allison was a major source of rift in the Brown family, even though they had been accepting of his previous partners. While the major reason for this was unknown, some people speculated that it could be a result of Allison's age, as she was 10 years older than Joshua. Sources reported that Bam Bam had felt he had to shield her from a colder reception from family members who bristled at her age and her leadership role in the show. However, he would later admit that adjusting to life outside the bush was hard, and even trying to navigate walking down the sidewalk was an experience. His decision was born of a carefully thought-out plan to understand Ali's stance in life. He is noted to have said, "I hope we can blend our lives, and I can take her back to Alaska." They purchased a 100-foot ferry in November 2017, and after extensive renovations, they began another adventure, living their lives on a boat in 2018. The boat was a result of Ali's hard work, and his statement to his followers on Facebook confirmed it. He said, "Ali searched and found the old ferry just before she was going to be sold for scrap. We have been gutting and renovating her ever since." The boat, initially named Osprey, would be renamed by the star as Fathom. The boat was sometimes anchored at Charleston, South Carolina.